Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Grill Team 6 podcast, episode 1. I am your host, Jacob Wardridge. I'm having a very snowy day here at the I 40 Middle Tennessee studios in Cookeville, Tennessee. I know that the South is currently experiencing snowmageddon, or the Ice Age, as I'm calling it, just ice everywhere, snow everywhere, and I know all of our North friends are making fun of us, but we are not used to that here. We are, rookies in this, but it's okay. We're sitting back here today. We got our favorite drink. We got some Dr. Pepper and some Old Smoky Moonshine Cherries. Mix it up just a little bit. That'll segue into our first story of the day, but just a reminder, if you like talking with lawyers, waiting at the doctor's office, or being on hold with insurance companies, this is probably not the podcast for you. I just want to thank everybody for listening. I really do appreciate it. We love you all. This has been a long time coming. This is February 16th, 2021. I actually wrote this script probably about 2 weeks ago. Just not really had time to go around to get around to doing it. But had a little bit of free time here, so I figured, might as well try to get into it today. Today we're going to look at the Dr. Pepper, yes, the Dr. Pepper, not a Dr. Pepper, but the Dr. Pepper soft drink origin story, a supposed werewolf, and then the infamous UFO incident in Wytheville, Virginia, involving Jimmy Gordon, which has been featured many times in over several ghost hunting, UFO encounter websites, TV shows. Is fairly well known. So we're going to get into that. So sit back and relax with your favorite drink. As Lorraine would say, grab a cocktail, grab a mocktail, grab some water, grab a beer, and let's sit back and dive into the first ever Grill Team 6 podcast. I really appreciate you guys being here. So, in the town of Rural Treat, Virginia, formerly known as Mount Airy, Virginia, fun fact, there sits a local legend, or their claim to fame. Back in the turn of the 20th century, they had a drugstore with a pharmacist by the name of Charles Taylor Pepper. And as one version of the story goes, Dr. Pepper created the soft drink, aka Dr. Pepper, long shot guess, right? in the basement of his drugstore. And as the years go on, he begins to sell the soft drink out of his store. No, he's not pimping prostitutes or drugs out of his store. He's pimping the infamous Dr. Pepper, the evil, horrid Dr. Pepper. Now, in this version, the pharmacist has a daughter who was growing up, and apparently he also had a teenage boy. His daughter was a teenager, and he had a teenage boy working for him. And the two fell in love, but Dr. Pepper did not want the boy to see his daughter, and he forbid the two to see each other. Times were a lot different back in the 1900s. And this is where the story goes down the rabbit hole. Depending on who you ask, up to this point, there's different variations. Anyway, most people accept that the teenager moves to Waco, Texas, and takes the formula for the drink with him. But he keeps the name Dr. Pepper due to the love he never got to be with. That's what I always heard from my research. But in asking several other people, there's a different variant to where the drugstore boy and the daughter run away to Waco, Texas, and he formulates the soft drink there, but the daughter makes him keep the name in honor of her father. Like, can you imagine if you're the father, like your daughter runs off with this boy, whatever, and then one day you go to the local grocery store and there's a pop-up ad for Dr. Pepper, like, what? And you buy a bottle of it and it tastes nothing like what you formulated, but like this is getting like all the monopoly money and all the cap, and it's just like, what in the world? I'm sure he's like, what the hell? And it's just like he goes home and has to crack open his Dr. Pepper and is like, one day when I catch that boy, I swear to God. I mean, you talk about an awkward family meeting. I'm just going to throw that out there. I mean, can you imagine whenever they went back home, just like the awkwardness? I mean, you think it's awkward at your family gatherings. This must be like just new level. I mean, like, yeah, father-in-law, dad, whatever you want to call him. Like, yeah, I stole the formula. Yeah, I took your daughter away. Yeah, I made millions of dollars. But it's okay. I'm wearing a pink sweater. Kind of like Bill Gates. I just had to throw that in there. Anyway, what it is, can you imagine walking around town and it's just like, whoa, Mr. Charles, I'm glad that you finally decided to take, this soft drink public. And he's like, I did not take the soft drink public, as a tear rolls down his cheeks. Like, I wonder if he went to Waco to try to find them and they came back, or like, he goes to Waco trying to find his son-in-law. Maybe you should hire Alejandro to go find him. I mean, that might be a hitman show, but you never know. Hey. But like, where's he at? I'm staring back at the giant Dr. Pepper factory. Like, I don't know where he could be. Either way, whatever story you hear, I'm sure there's other variants. That's just the two that I could dig up. But actually, one thing that is for sure is that the Mountain View Cemetery in Rural Treat, Virginia, Dr. Pepper's grave is there. So if you're ever passing through on I-81 and off exit 60, you can go visit Dr. Pepper's grave. It's like probably like 6-7 minutes off the interstate. Okay. Story number 2 is the Wytheville werewolf. Now, to be fair, this story, I couldn't find anything on Google or Yahoo or DuckDuckGo or any other browsers I use. And I know what you're saying, Jacob. Now, you see a lot of stuff on Facebook, especially when you've had a couple Dr. Peppers with some cherries in it. Are you sure this is real? Honestly, I don't know. But I solemnly swear that back when I was in college, I seen some type of article on Facebook about this. And it kind of goes along the lines of, it was either on Winding or YWYE Road off of US 21 in Wytheville, Virginia. If you're a local, I think kind of around the Lakes to Florida Grill, where it's at currently. Sometime back in the 70s or 80s on Halloween night. Okay, I know, stereotypes. I'm sorry, but this is what I remember of it. A group of trick-or-treaters were walking down that particular road. Well, they saw a giant type of creature, and so it being Halloween night, they thought it was just a man in the costume. But apparently when they approached it, they figured out it wasn't a man, it was a, wait for it, werewolf. And they ran away. It ran away. They all had a big party. They went home and grilled some shish kebabs. I don't know. But I plainly remember finding that on like some random Facebook article back in like 2016. So do with that as you may, the Wytheville werewolf. I don't take too much of it to account. But anyway, let's get into our main topic, and that is the Wytheville UFO. Now, Wytheville is a very strange place, granted. I love it. I love my hometown. I love where I'm from. But there's some oddities. You can see some strange things at the Sheetz parking lot or the Walmart at midnight. Back when you go to Walmart at midnight, back when we had an open and free society. Anyway. But back in the 1980s, Jimmy Gordon experienced a phenomenon that changed not only his life, but the life of every Wythe County resident forever. This is a story that there's a lot of info on, like I said earlier. Multiple UFO sites, Paranormal Scholar even did a video on YouTube about it. So here's how the story goes. I'm going to stop blabbing. On October 7th, 1987, radio horse Danny Gordon, okay, I said he was Jimmy Gordon, I apologize. Danny Gordon was doing his show when he received a phone call from the local sheriff. Now, this was not uncommon because the sheriff would call into the show to give updates and the news. But this would not be the everyday phone call. Danny was shocked to hear the 4 officers, 3 former military, had seen a UFO. Now, Danny tried to play it off. But immediately following the show, the board light lit up with phone calls from people all over Wythe County seeing these UFOs. So, on October 19th, Danny set up a call-in show for people to claim their reports. He even made calls to the local military, but was assured basically he had nothing to worry about. that they were just refueling planes in midair. And everyone basically was being a hypochondriac. Well, Danny took it upon himself to call the Pentagon, where a top Air Force general said that under no circumstances would the military be refueling under 13,000 feet. And the reported sightings of these strange lights were spotted no more than 5,000 feet above the ground. So this simply was not the U.S. Air Force. Now, the sightings still unexplained. So, on October 21st, Danny and his friend Roger Hall, a former pilot, went out during the night to watch for aircrafts at one of the local hotspots. They had video and normal cameras and waited for about 2 hours. During the time, they saw nothing, and right when they was about ready to go home, they found what they was looking for. Danny saw an object in the sky and alerted Hall. They pulled over and saw a large, domed, wingless object coming toward them with the right side of the aircraft illuminated, with the strobe putting out various lights. Danny reported that the object was the size of 2 football fields and he could see 3 windows with the lights coming from inside. And then all of a sudden they saw a red ball coming toward them that they assumed was the mothership. Soon, the large ship moved behind a cloud bank with the red ball following it. Both men were in awe of what they were seeing, and assuming that the other one was taking pictures or recording, neither one of them captured the aircraft on film. So, both the men, disappointed, went home and agreed that they would go out again the following night. So, the next night comes, and they set out in search of this craft and find it again. And this time they were able to photograph the anomaly when they developed the pictures. They only showed vague streaks of light in the sky. They called for a press conference when they was ready to share their findings. Now, this is where the story gets interesting. So Danny gets home and is trying to get relaxed for the next day when he receives a mysterious phone call from someone who was refusing to identify themselves, warning him that the CIA and federal government was very interested in the Withville UFO case and that he needed to leave it alone because it was not his place, and I quote, to be messing in defense matters. Now, the next day comes and the press conference is held, and upon Danny returning home, he notices that someone had broken in his house. Now, nothing was missing, but from the way the house looked, it appeared they were looking for something. Probably the UFO photos. Far from being over, reports of UFOs flooded Wythe County. Gordon would get his second chance to capture the UFO with his camera. 6 weeks after the news conference, he, along with his wife and daughter, were leaving a local mall after doing some shopping. When everyone in the area stopped to look up, suddenly they heard a roar of voices coming from a Wythe school bus which was sitting in the parking lot. Then supposedly, there were 4 different aircrafts flying in formation that made no sound. According to Danny's estimation, at least 200 people who watched them fly over. There were 200 people that watched them fly over. This time Gordon had his camera and he snapped several photographs. After these photos were developed, it could clearly be seen that 4 lights changed shapes. This described various shapes and sizes, with most of the objects seeming to be noiseless. The sightings in and around Withville continued. By the end of December, approximately 1,500 reports had been filed. Something was definitely happening. Again, Danny called the Pentagon and wanted answers. The response he received was shocking. Speaking with the spokesman of defense at the Pentagon, he was told, "We do not deny UFOs exist. The government confirms they exist, but we deny they pose a threat to the populace of Wythe County." When Danny asked him how he could know such a thing, he was bluntly told that no further information could be given. Danny continued to investigate the plague of UFOs in Wythe County. However, one night after receiving another mysterious phone call, he began to wonder if he was making the right decision. On March 19, 1998, Gordon, while packing for a broadcasters conference in Virginia Beach, where he would discuss his UFO sightings over Withville, he received a telephone call from a retired military intelligence officer. The officer told Gordon to tape the call because if something were to happen to Gordon, he would have the proof that Gordon had been warned to cease publicizing the UFO sightings. The man told Danny that he too had been researching UFOs to a tragic end. A part of the conversation was recorded, and the quote is, "What I'm telling you, Danny, is I've been pursuing this thing for many, many years. And like I said, I saw my son die of leukemia." The man claimed that because of his research, his son was targeted. Here's another quote. "What I'm telling you is they will try to hit you if they think it's advisable for their purpose to keep you from further investigating this thing. Then most likely it'd be done through skin-to-skin chemicals if something like on a doorknob or the steering wheel of your car. They could also come up with something to do to you or to your children." Danny was chilled and frightened by this call, but determined he must continue his research. Approximately a month later, Gordon had a visit from two men they claimed to be from a newspaper. One of the men interviewed Gordon about the sighting for about 45 minutes, while the second visitor roamed about the house, taking photographs. Gordon had been promised a copy of the interview, but after a suitable time passed with no information, Gordon called the paper where the two men claimed to work. Gordon was informed that the two men were not employees of this particular newspaper. A few weeks later, Gordon got a chance to go back through all the photos he had taken of the UFOs, and he had discovered that although some of the negatives remained, one set in particular was missing, the photos taken over the shopping mall. At this point, Danny is living alone. His wife and kids have moved out. It was too stressful on them. The threatening phone calls, the visits by the bogus businessmen, and the breaking in of his home finally took their toll on Gordon. 2 weeks after he discovered the missing set of photos, he keeled over. His wife rushed him to a local emergency room where it was first thought that he was suffering a heart attack. It was soon discovered that he was suffering from exhaustion. Gordon, his health at risk, finally decided to back off of his ardent search for the mystery of the UFO sightings over Wytheville, Virginia, and gave this advice to others: don't look it up. Speaking years later, he said that if I had the choice, I'd not report the UFO story again. It's been too hard on my life and created too many problems. What can I say about the mysterious lights/objects over the Virginia skies in the late 1980s? Were they from the stars? Or were they highly classified military experiments? We may never know for certain. The mystery continues. Well, what did happen in Wytheville all them nights ago? That is an answer that remains to be seen. We all, coming from, Wythe County, we all know how special it is or how much you hate it. No matter how you think of it, there's something that really ties everybody there. There's really no denying that. Whether you live there for a couple months, years, or your whole life. It's just one of those places that it has its own vibe. And that is definitely for certain. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have been your host, Jacob Bordridge. I am glad you guys tuned in to the first podcast from Grill Team 6, live from the snowy I-40 Middle Tennessee studios. I hope you guys have a great day and spread the word about the podcast if you guys enjoyed it. If you hate it, don't ever listen to it again. I'm sorry I wasted your time. But either way, this is Jacob signing off. We'll see you guys soon.